Honourable Chair and Honourable Members, apologies for the quick start. Carl Bruce from Cape Nature, Executive Director for Biodiversity Capabilities, and I will be going through the presentation this morning.
Most welcome. Other members, I see your names here on the screen.
Yeah, good morning, Chair and Honourable Members. Ernst Bart, Executive Director, Conservation Operations, Cape Nature.
Good morning, Honourable Chair. Marlene Leross. I am with the Department of Environment Affairs and Development Planning. I'm Director, Biodiversity and Coastal Management. Good morning, everybody. Thank you.
Good. Most welcome, representatives of the Department and of Cape Nature. Ms. Leross, perhaps I can just say, if you want to take part later on, your voice was a bit soft. If you could just then speak up. Honourable members, are you all fine with me then handing over to Ms. Birch to start with the presentation and the background to these regulations? If I don't see any hands, then Ms. Birch, over to you. And I trust that you would be able to have your presentation on our screens.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I trust that the presentation is in view in terms of the starting slide. So it is a briefing on the draft rules and standards for trophy hunting of leopards in South Africa, as you've indicated in terms of Section 9 of the Biodiversity Act.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. So in terms of the presentation, it's not very long, so it's going to have a brief overview of, and in the background, speak to the key requirements of the norms and standards, some of the key areas of concern, how it implicates the Western Cape Province, and then our conclusion and recommendations. So the first draft norms and standards for leopard trophy hunting were gazetted on the 8th of February 2017. And subsequent to that, the matter has been referred to the Scientific Authority of South Africa, the Scientific Authority being constituted by members of the provinces and the National Department, as it relates to the CITES Convention, so the Convention on the International Trade in Endangered Species, which requires that a non-detriment finding be made on species for which trade may have a detrimental impact. The preliminary non-detriment finding for leopard was published in 2015 for scientific input, and it highlighted poorly managed trophy hunting of leopards, based on that there was no reliable estimate for the total population of leopard in South Africa. A national leopard framework was implemented to provide density estimates for leopards on a national scale, which is interpreted as the number of leopards per 100 square kilometres. It included the Western Cape Province and data from the National Leopard Monitoring Framework, which is facilitated by the South African National Biodiversity Institute. The recommendations for annual leopard hunting quotas are made by the Scientific Authority to the Minister, and the allocation of leopard hunting quotas has been in effect since 2016. The key requirements for trophy hunting is that the Scientific Authority must determine leopard hunting zones. Leopard hunting zones are based on distribution and population data that is gathered by the provinces and facilitated by the South African National Biodiversity Institute. These hunting quotas that are in the norms and standards are then allocated per leopard hunting zone, where leopard populations are considered stable. Only one leopard per leopard hunting zone may be allocated for a quota. Only male leopards older than 7 years may be hunted. No allocation of hunting quotas in the next hunting season if the leopard hunting in the leopard hunting zone if female or underage male leopards were hunted. The key areas of concern relate to the ability to assess the age of male leopards And this concern was addressed through the following mechanisms: online examination of local hunter and professional hunter, I'm going to say their portfolios, a brochure and a pamphlet which is then distributed together with the hunting permit in terms of what the key things are to look for in assessing the age of a leopard, and then the establishment of a panel of experts to assist with the evaluation of the photographs. So the panel of experts is a national panel of experts, external to the scientific authority and government departments, some consisting of officials in certain provinces, who then assess in terms of when there is an application to hunt whether the leopard is of the correct age. The implications for the Western Cape: we will be implementing the norms and standards once they are implemented. The norms and standards are applicable to trophy hunting of all leopards. To date, no leopard has been hunted for a trophy in the Western Cape. Trophy hunting for leopards mainly occurs in the northern provinces, being North West and Limpopo province. In the Western Cape, for the last number of years, the province has not requested or been allocated a leopard quota for hunting. Our conclusion and recommendations is that we support the national norms and standards. We recommend that the Standing Committee supports the implementation of the national norms and standards, and we recommend that the National Department of Environmental Affairs, Forestry and Fisheries supports the regulated community through compliance promotion programs. In other words, the roadshow. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Is there any other official that would like to add to this presentation? Not at this stage. Honourable members, you now have an opportunity to ask questions for clarification. Good. While I'm waiting for other members who may perhaps want to raise their hands, I've got a number of questions. Can I just first ask the issue of problem animals? Sometimes we do get problem animals that are then, quite often there are various ways in which you deal with problem animals. It seems to me nowadays, with the outcry against culling, is that problem animals are then often moved to other locations. But I do know that, in the past, farmers have complained about problem animals, and I'm just thinking that it might at some stage in the future include leopard. Wouldn't that then also be something which should be covered by the norms and standards? My second one is injured animals. I know that some of the occasions where leopard have been shot in the Western Cape as well, I think these were animals that were caught in snares, and then, should that not be covered as well, or what are the regulations determining those instances? My third question is just, it seems to me as if this scientific authority that would be determining the quotas, etc., is a national entity, and I'm missing some provincial oversight and input. Shouldn't provinces, provincial conservation authorities also be given an opportunity to just, also be consulted or to make input into the quotas, etc.? And then my next question is regarding canned hunting. Are you happy that the regulations that are currently applicable to canned hunting, that also apply to the hunting of leopard? Because up to now, canned hunting has been known more in terms of the hunting of lions, but I can just imagine that, once this becomes a lucrative business, that we will also have to prohibit the canned hunting of leopard. And then lastly, how easy is it to determine the gender of leopard, especially wild leopard, when you're out on a hunt, as well as the age, and then surely you must now be looking at the animal through a telescope or binoculars or something like that. And then what happens if it should be found that the animal that the hunter has shot is not of 7 years or is not a male animal? I do know that the penalty, it seems, in terms of the norms and standards, is that for the next hunting season, no permit would be issued for that area. But surely now you're actually penalizing, other hunters and other operators, and not the person that was unscrupulous or that made a mistake, or perhaps even deliberately, transgressed. Is there any action against the person that then transgressed these norms and standards, or deviated from the norms and standards? Those are the questions from my side. I do not seem to have any other hands at this point. I trust that there may be more once we've had the responses. Ms. Bursa, are you going to respond?
Yes, thank you, Honourable Chair. I will respond. The first question relating to potentially problem leopards or damage-causing animal leopards. Damage-causing leopards are dealt with in a different set of norms and standards, and Cape Nature has a process that is aligned with the norms and standards, and we have a rather rigorous internal process of assessing whether a leopard was responsible for causing damage, whether it was identified as an individual, and then recommendations in terms of how to address that. So they're not specifically included in these norms and standards, but they are included in the norms and standards for damage-causing animals. And similarly, when there are injured animals for which considerations of interventions which may include euthanasia are considered, those are done in line with the norms and standards for damage-causing animals. As it relates to the scientific authority, which is appointed by the national minister, it involves the appointment of provincial officers on the scientific authority, and through that representation by provinces on the scientific authority, engagement with provinces are facilitated. Cape Nature does have a representative on the scientific authority. In terms of canned hunting, or the scenario of put and take animals as it relates to primarily lions, and I think one may want to think that it may happen with leopards, but fortunately leopards can clear a fence 3 meters high with ease, so it's not that easy to put them somewhere where they will remain to be hunted. But the regulations that deal with prohibited hunting methods relate to canned hunting, which is not supported at a national level. In relation to the gender determination or the age determination, I think if I try and go back to where there was a picture of a leopard, male leopards are generally larger in size. They have I want to say like their chin over here. There's quite a distinction in terms of the size. I'm not going to go into the details, but there is a framework that helps to assess with how to assess whether it's a male or a female if one can't see the indicators. And then the process for determining age and gender relies on data that is collected through either trap cameras or video material of the leopard to be hunted, and that is then given to the panel of experts, and those comprises experts, on a national scale that then assess this. So when there is a professional hunter involved, they would have passed a course in terms of where they would have been assessed in terms of their ability to assign gender and age, and then the processes that are in place that are monitored by the provinces towards the determination relies on the panel of experts. And then I think the last question in terms of the what are the penalties related to if a leopard should be hunted which was not a male leopard. The norms and standards speak to that if there are then no male leopards in that hunting zone, that the quota will not be issued the following year. So it's based on the fact that if it's either a female that was shot or a juvenile, that there won't be a quota in the next year. However, if information is collected in terms of that there is a healthy population of leopards supported by monitoring data, verifiable monitoring data, then it would be able to be proposed in terms of the way that the leopard hunting quotas are allocated. So the National Department asks on an annual basis for the provinces to indicate whether they want a quota, and what the scientific authority does is provide the supporting information in terms of what the population health is in that area. So I don't think it directly will negatively impact. I think maybe Dr. Barth would like to add to my answers. Thank you.
Thank you. I see Dr. Barth's hand is raised.
Thank you, Chairperson. I want to just briefly add to what Carl has just said, and not taking away anything from the, let's call it, hunting of wrong leopards and so on, but just to confirm that over the last 4 to 5 years, a lot of research has gone into, on behalf of the national government by international NGOs and local NGOs, a lot of research has gone into the establishment of what the population, the leopard population in South Africa is like, and whether or not quotas can in fact be issued. However, I want to also confirm that, as Carl was indicated, is that in terms of penalties, the professional hunters that usually accompany a hunt or a client, they are very well trained. And in terms of wrong identification, that, yes, I guess that can happen. But with the fact that individual leopards can be identified individually by way of their spots, the patterns on their body and everything, that makes it easier in terms of getting or hunting at least the correct individual that was identified. And then just to come back to your remark in terms of, so if I, for example, shoot the wrong leopard, why are the other hunters now penalized by way of me not doing what I'm supposed to do? I think it is, in my opinion, a comment could be that the system that has now been put in place with the norms and standards, backed up by all the scientific information and information that is in place, does make for almost like a system that administers itself. In other words, when the hunter goes into the hunt with the professional hunter that accompanies him on the hunt, they do make sure that they get the right leopard and so on in order not to penalize the system. However, there is the penalty that if a wrong leopard is hunted, then next year there is consideration of no quota. So, Chair, I think I just wanted to add those few comments to the debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Barth. Okay, so the picture is that if I shoot the wrong animal, there's no penalty for me personally, except that the industry would probably have an outcry and I might be branded. But if I'm a hunter from a foreign country, then you know I'm off, and it's only the professional hunter that accompanied me. I also don't see in the regulations that I must be accompanied by a professional hunter. Perhaps you could just correct me if that is the case. And then can I just ask also, in terms of the Western Cape, we do have leopard, and I think there are a number of foundations that are also studying our leopard, etc. And perhaps it's not quite related to the norms and standards, but perhaps just as a background, it seems to me as if the leopard in the Western Cape are so sparsely populated, and I'm just wondering whether they find each other to mate, whether there's an optimum point where, almost like the elephant that we have in the Knysna forests, you know, if you don't get any other elephant or animal close to that one, obviously then your population will be under threat all the time. So what is the situation in the Western Cape in terms of leopard numbers and their ability to sustain themselves and even hopefully get to levels that will be manageable, and that will in a sense add to our biodiversity, but not to the extent that they also become problem animals and that they start attacking farm animals, etc. Because it seems to me as a lay person as if at this stage, because the numbers in our mountains are so low, that the situation is currently controllable from a human and farming perspective, but perhaps from a conservation perspective, one would like to see bigger numbers. If you could just help us to understand. Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much. I'm going to refer your question about the professional hunter and whether or not in the norms and standards to Coral. So I'm going to answer the second part of the question by saying is that, Chair, we have it on very good authority from both from research and surveys, camera trap surveys that have been done right across the Western Cape province, mostly the Cape Fold Mountains and the associated lowlands, by the two NGOs, the two main NGOs that operate within the Western Cape, the Cape Leopard Trust, and then secondly, the Landmark Foundation. We have it on very good authority that there is a very healthy Cape population of leopards in the Western Cape. I want to interrupt myself. I almost said of Cape leopards. There is no such thing as Cape leopards. It is basically just the same species. They are genetically somewhat strategized, if I can. There is genetic differences between the populations. However, it is one leopard population in South Africa. The leopards in the Cape Fold Mountains, they are generally smaller and have much larger territories than the leopards outside of the Western Cape province. But to answer the question, Chair, we have it on good authority that we actually have a very good and very healthy population in the Cape Fold Mountains. And the fact that we still have a good population is indicative of the fact that they do, in fact, get to each other, or they find each other. For example, males have much bigger territories that they patrol, and they are almost like side to side, whereas the females have got smaller territories, and they encounter each other on a more regular basis. But it's mostly the males that defend their territories. And obviously, yes, the indication is that we still have a good, healthy breeding population. So I think that to conclude, Chair, I would like to confirm that from Cape Nature's point of view, we are very sensitive towards leopard conservation. It's one of our flagship species. It's one of the iconic species of the Cape Fold Mountains, and we do a lot with the NGOs to create awareness, to put up signage on our major mountain passes like Pietermaritzkloof Pass, Beinskloof, and all of these areas for people to watch out for our leopards. Unfortunately, some of them do get knocked over. Like I think about a month ago, we had an unfortunate event in the Pickeneerskloof Pass where a youngish female was struck by a car and she died. However, in the human-wildlife conflict context, we do a lot of education for landowners with stock, both sheep, goats, cattle, for them to actually take precautions against leopard damage or leopard predation of the stock. So yes, to answer the question then, Chair, we are quite comfortable at this stage that we have a good leopard population in the Western Cape. So if Carol can then just take the question around the professional hunter. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Burst. You can continue. Perhaps if one of you could just also for the record give us an estimate of the number of leopard numbers in the Western Cape. I think it would be information that we as members might find interesting. But thank you very much, Ms. Burst. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. I think in terms of the regulation of professional hunters in the industry as a whole, so there's a myriad of legislation that would apply, which would be the threatened or protected species regulations, the norms and standards on professional hunting, that sort of sets the scene for how to regulate. And if I get back to, if we had an international client that came to hunt a leopard and shot the wrong animal, he would require a CITES export permit that is then supported by the non-detriment finding. And the penalty would be that he would not be able to export his trophy. So I think that would be a significant deterrent for a international client to hunt a leopard. And the reason why these norms and standards don't speak to the requirement for a professional hunter to accommodate an international client is because it is addressed in the regulations and the norms and standards that relate to professional hunting and international clients. So any international client that comes to hunt an animal must be accompanied by a registered professional hunter as well as a professional hunting outfitter, and that's in a different set of legislation. We envisage that leopard hunting for trophies will only be by international hunters, if that is the case, as it is in the northern provinces. I think if I can also just add to Adam's response in terms of the whether the sparse distribution of leopards is a matter of concern. So Adam alluded to the fact that there has been genetic research done on leopards at a national scale, also including leopards in the Western Cape. And the results indicated that there is adequate gene flow within the populations. So even though we're not able to say which animal or that all animals move and integrate with each other, the genetics demonstrates that there is gene flow. But a lot of the monitoring work which is done where leopards are collared with telemetry collars or radio tracking collars or satellite collars indicates where different leopards move. So Adam alluded to that we know that male leopards will cover territories of a number of female leopards and that they move quite widely. In terms of the population size in the Western Cape, it is one of the reasons in terms of the precautionary not requesting an allocation for leopards in the Western Cape is that we can determine that the population is stable in a healthy perspective. There is gene flow, but the actual estimate on the population size eludes us. And I think Aaron may have already looked at one of the recent papers that gives us an indication that the population size may be between 400 and 500 leopards in the province. Thank you.
And then just a last question from my side. These norms and standards apply now to leopard. What is the position with cheetah and the hunting of cheetah? Don't you think that we should ask that these norms and standards should be expanded to also include cheetah?
I will respond to that, Chair. I think the differentiation between cheetah and leopard is that cheetah are contained on properties and generally would be managed on a property, on a property by property level. If there are animals to be hunted, I am not aware that there have been any requests for hunting of cheetah as trophy animals for export. But where leopard are actually not contained, so they're not really associated with a property, and that is why these norms and standards have been prioritized. But I do think that there is room to extend them to include cheetah, which will most likely require a slightly different approach going forward. I think Adam can add to that comment.
Chair, yes, I would like to confirm what Carol has just said. I do think that there may be room to expand this to cheetahs. However, I need to remind the committee that cheetah is much more of a conservation concern in South Africa, and I do think that there would be a strong reluctance to allow formal formal quotas for cheetah. Most of the cheetah found in South Africa are of conservation. Well, the species itself is of conservation concern, and there are a number of properties and outfits that actually contain populations in terms of their small population size, and then also there are one or two institutions that contribute and participate in a conservation breeding program for cheetah. So I think under those circumstances, it is probably unlikely that a formal cheetah hunting quota would be issued. I think that is just some information also to share. Thank you, Chair.
Good, thank you. Thank you for those inputs. Honourable members, it seems to me, in the absence of any further questions, that we can then go over to formulate our views. And it seems to me, if I understood correctly, that from the Western Cape and Cape Nature's side, that these norms and standards are found to be acceptable or can be supported, and that that should be the extent of our comment to the back to the national authorities, to say, but thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on the norms and standards for the trophy hunting of leopard, and that these norms and standards are supported by this committee. Is that a correct summary, honourable members? Will you support that?
Yes, Chair.
Bartman, Honourable Maseku, Honourable Bartman, I recognise your hand.
Yes, Chair, I second that support. And Chair, I think Cape Nature did add an extra recommendation regarding roadshow on their slides. So if we could possibly then just indicate our view according to those recommendations on that slide that they indicated. Thank you.
Good, thank you very much for that input. And in terms of the scientific authority, I presume then that the province's rights to be represented there is sufficiently protected in some policy document. So then it's just our support for these norms and standards, plus then just the object of also asking that these norms and standards be made known by, I wonder if there's a better word for roadshow, but that it be populated. Would that be an acceptable term?
Yes, Chair.
Good, thank you very much. Honourable Maran, anything from your side?
Fine with me, Chair.
Good, thank you very much. Honourable members, I must tell you, when I heard that we must comment on the norms and standards for the trophy hunting of leopard, it's not something that I would like to endorse, but obviously I realize that there are some realities out there and that we cannot just shy away from it. So, Ms. Niekerk, I trust that you have heard enough and that we are clear enough for you to be able to formulate on behalf of the committee a letter then in response to this opportunity to respond.
Perfectly clear, Chairperson. I'll do so.
Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to say to both our departmental officials as well as the representatives of Cape Nature, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this morning and for briefing us on this. And we wish you everything of the best with your great work that you are doing in terms of the Western Cape and in terms of our unique biodiversity. Thank you very much. You are most welcome to leave if you should want to. The committee will now consider some minutes and also some resolutions emanating from a previous meeting that we've had on the transport of farm workers. So thank you very much for your presence. You're welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to leave this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you, honourable members, and goodbye.
Thank you, Honourable Chair, honourable members. Goodbye.
Wish you well. Thank you.
Chair and honourable members, goodbye.
Thank you, Ms. Niekerk. Would you be so kind, please, to first beam onto our screens the minutes of our previous meeting dated the 9th of February? Thank you, honourable members. There you see the minutes of the meeting of the 9th of February, and I put to you first page 1. Thank you. Page 2. Good. And page 3. This is now our meeting on the land use planning. Thank you very much for that. Honourable members, can I get a proposal that we adopt these minutes?
Propose to adopt.
Thank you, Ms. Bartman. Honourable Maran.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you very much. Duly adopted then. Then, Ms. Niekerk, the minutes of the 10th of February. Thank you very much. Page 1. I put then to you page 2. Page 3. And I think there is a page 4 as well, Ms. Niekerk. I can't see. It's only the 3 pages.
Only the 3 pages, Chair.
Yes. Thank you. Again, a proposal to adopt.
Propose to adopt, Chair.
Thank you. Seconded or supported by other members? Thank you. Honourable Maseko, I see your hand is raised. And Honourable Maran?
Thank you very much. Chair, seconded.
Thank you. Unanimously approved, it seems. Good. Thank you very much, honourable members. Honourable members, that last meeting of the 10th of February, I believe, was the one where we dealt with the transport safety of farm workers. And because we ran out of time, members were invited to submit recommendations to take this issue forward. And Ms. Niekerk has received some proposed resolutions, and it's there on your screen now. And the first one is almost by way of introduction, that we noted the number of serious road accidents during the current harvesting season leading to critical injuries and in some instances deaths of farm workers. Perhaps if I may propose that we just add, and that this issue therefore warrants a serious consideration or something to that effect. Honourable Maran, I see your microphone picking up your sound. Would you like to add to that first sentence?
No, Chair, I think it's sufficient.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Nikak, if you could just say, and then, okay, you've got it there, one serious consideration. The second one is the committee was perturbed to hear about the levels of corruption related to the testing of the roadworthiness of vehicles and resolved, this is now for our consideration, that it would bring this matter to the attention of the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works for possible action. Can you agree with that?
Agree.
Chairperson,
Thank you. Honorable Maseku.
Chairperson, can we put the committee was perturbed to hear allegations about the level of corruption?
Okay, allegations. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay.
I must say it was for me quite shocking to hear that from our traffic official or the Department of Transport official, and it was supported then by the previous provincial head of traffic law enforcement. Good. Then the next one that we've got there is that we must now consider whether we would like to resolve to conduct a follow-up meeting on the subject of the transportation of farm workers with both the employer and labour representatives present. Agreed to?
Agreed.
Agreed, Chair.
Thank you. I think it was Honourable Maran's proposal, so thank you, Honourable Maran, for that one. Then the next one is support the recommendation from Agri Western Cape and the Department of Agriculture for trucks to only load 50% of their load capacity. If I could ask that we perhaps support the recommendations from Agri Western Cape and the Department of Agriculture for trucks to limit their load capacity when transporting, shall one say, persons?
Persons.
To limit their load capacity when transporting persons to, shall one say, the 50%, I don't know, Honourable Maran, is that a thumb suck, a figure? I mean, could it be 60%? I don't know. I don't recall that they mentioned a specific percentage, but I stand to be correct.
No, they do mention it, Chair.
Thank
Sorry,
you, Honourable
Chair.
Maseku. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to find out something. With this limit of 50%, to what an extent does it cover the distancing within the transport for the COVID-19?
Yes, I see there's another one under 123 which speaks to the lockdown regulations. So perhaps, Honourable Maseku, if you don't mind us dealing with that then under 123. Okay, so if Honourable Maran speaks of that or confirm that they say 50% to limit their load capacity when transporting persons to 50%.
Look, Chair, if you can recall or remember when they have both the Department of Agriculture and also the Agri Western Cape, I made the comment by saying that I'm not sure who came forward with this proposal and whether the Department of Agriculture have stolen the proposal from Agri Western Cape, where they basically had these figures saying, for making the example, for instance, of an 8-ton truck being allowed to transport 8,000 kilos of weight, but divides it by 2. Remember? Divides it by 2, and then they got a calculation of a person with an average weight of 68 kilos, and that basically gives them the amount of 50%. So it was in the presentation, Chair.
Okay, good. Shall we say then 50% of payload? Because it seems to be payload is a term that is used in terms of the carrying capacity of a vehicle. Mostly known, used in the aviation industry, but I'm not that au fait with the difference between Tara and so on. Honourable Bartman?
Chairperson, I am a little bit set off with this because of if we are going to do the resolutions as a committee to that an extent about the regulation, and we don't have the standing committee or the Minister of Transport was not there, how are we going to sort of increase the hope to that effect that this will be adhered to? So I don't know how should we put it, but it has to be something as the commissioners of oath that when we do that motivation of the regulation, we also have the enough information in support of why are we saying that. And I need to be corrected that we don't have enough info to can just do that resolution of not knowing whether it's the weight or it's about the persons or it's about, you get what I mean? I don't know how to put it, but I'm sort of so about that resolution or action that has to be motivated.
Thank you, Honourable Bartman, and then Honourable Maran.
Thank you, Chair. Now, my question is just a question of wording. I wanted to know what's the difference between payload and persons, because isn't payload also goods? And you can put goods on top of each other, whereas if you just say transporting persons, then it actually makes it clear. But I stand to be corrected. I'm not an English expert. Thank you.
Okay.
Honourable Maran.
Chair, if you remember, as per Regulation 247, trucks are not permitted to transport passengers, right? But that specific section allows them to transport, say, passengers, not passengers, persons. But it should not then exceed the loading capacity of that of the vehicle. Now the loading capacity is per TARA or per whatever you call it. And it's because of that, Chair, where the recommendation is saying not more than 50% of the loading capacity. You cannot say persons because the vehicle is not permitted to transport persons. But the regulations, the National Transport Regulations allows for persons or for workers to be transported on that. But then it's specific, it said it should not be more than the loading capacity of that truck or that vehicle.
Okay, but I like the fact that some members have said we must just look at the wording there, because, for example, I don't think we only want trucks, we also want to limit bakkies. And perhaps one can say support the recommendations from Agri Western Cape and the Department of Agriculture for vehicles transporting people. I think what we're aiming at is we're talking about vehicles that are not licensed and equipped to transport passengers, like buses and taxis and so on. And perhaps we could just better describe that then and the Department of Agriculture for the transport of people on vehicles that are not equipped. That are not equipped or intended, that are not solely intended to transport passengers or persons, to limit their payload, their load to 50% of licensed payload. Would a wording like that capture what we would like to see?
I agree, Chair.
I don't know if it addresses Honourable Bartman's concern yet. Honourable Bartman, please come in again.
Chair, now I'm fine with the wording. I think we're complicating it unnecessarily for ourselves. I think it's fine if we say transporting persons, but if the new wording is preferred, then I support it.
Okay, on vehicles that are not equipped for the transport of passengers, to limit their load capacity when transporting persons to 50% of payload. Okay. Okay, we'll ask Ms. Nikak. I think we've at least been more clear on this then. And then write to the National Minister of Transport and recommend that the load capacity of 50% be included in the lockdown regulations. Now, I don't know if the lockdown regulations are the responsibility of the Minister of Transport or the Minister of COCTA. Perhaps we can say that the National Minister of Transport should give consideration and possibly recommend to the relevant minister that the load capacity of 50% be included under the lockdown regulations, because that would be a quick one, which can be implemented without going through a lengthy public participation process. Honourable Maran, I see your hand.
No, Chair, it was a mistake. Not a mistake. I haven't put it down.
Okay, previous one.
But I agree with you. I think the responsibility lies with the Minister of COCTA, Chair. And the second part, Chair, that speaks to Regulation 247 is on the long run, basically to look at 247, the National Transport Regulation, and to be amended accordingly. So on the long run, it can't happen immediately. For the immediate Chair, it's to get it into the lockdown regulations, and then on the long run to look at 247 of the National Transport Regulations to be amended accordingly.
Good. Can we continue? Thank you. And then also under 131, where we now address to the Department of Agriculture, that road safety is a focus area in the department's rural safety plan, or perhaps when they revise their in future rural safety plans, perhaps one can say that. Agreed?
It's fine with me.
Honourable Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to find out if it would read better if we wrote rural road safety, or if you wanted road safety in general. Thank you.
Personally, I would go for it in general, because it is a little bit described in terms of the rural safety plan, which is the department's responsibility. I think, because my problem in a sense is that we as a committee, we have oversight over the Department of Agriculture and not over the Department of Transport. So that's why I would like to limit it or define what is the role that our department can play in this in solving this problem. Good. Then the next one, that they undertake an advisory campaign regarding the safe transport of farm workers. I presume that's a relatively safe one. Okay. And then 133, the Provincial Traffic Law Enforcement Section of the Department of Transport and Public Works, pay particular attention to the locations where farm workers are likely to be transported during peak times and to monitor these routes. I think it's something that was said during the meeting as part of the presentations to us, that law enforcement can and should be bumped up, and obviously people know where these open buckies and trucks fetch people from, particularly during the harvesting season. Bartman? Bartman? Okay, good. Ms. Nikak, do you have anything else at this point in time?
Nothing from my side, Chairperson.
So, honourable members, this is now the opportunity to add any other items. I can just indicate that there has been some media attention on our meeting, and I've been asked, what emanated from our meeting. I've got two more ideas that I would like to propose, but I would just first like to give you an opportunity as well. But I think it would be good if we can show, I almost want to say action steps, or, the way forward in terms of what we support or what we from our side recommend. Any further comments at this point in time? Honourable members, with no hands currently raised, can I just say one of the items, my impression is from one of the feedback that we've received is that human error plays a huge role in these accidents that we've witnessed over the last period, and that the first one would be then also to give workers an opportunity to report, what do you call it, while driving. When the people behind the steering wheels are not practicing safe driving or defensive driving techniques. And quite often those workers might be reluctant to report that because, they might be afraid to be branded as troublemakers, etc., for speaking up against, the permanent employee that is normally behind the steering wheel. And I recall that one of the recommendations have been that, there is the provincial traffic number, and that people should be encouraged to report such unruly behavior. And I hope Honourable Moran will help me with the right term for, sometimes they charge you for reckless driving.
Reckless driving.
Reckless, is that the word? Thank you. Okay. So perhaps as part of that advisory campaign, or that, the way in which to perhaps anonymously report reckless driving, that that also be communicated to the people that are being transported. Would that also be supported?
Support?
Chair, I support that one, Chair. And I think there's another one.
Please, go ahead.
Basically, Chair, after that particular meeting, Chair, I have engagements with a lot of farmers, basically. And one of the issues that they have raised, Chair, is to say maybe they are also at fault. And the one thing that they should consider is for these drivers to get special training. Because you will go basically for your K59 and your PDP, but it does not, that training does not deal with the transportation of moving objects behind the truck, like for instance persons who move from side to side, and when you go around the corner. Maybe they should consider to giving a special training to their drivers in that particular area.
Good. Yes. I think what we can perhaps then, as a recommendation, that consideration be given to a form of training. And I was also raising the issue of whether those people should go and have a public driver's permit. The problem is just that, I realize that these are not people doing it every day. And that may be perhaps part of the problem. But regular eye tests, or also for them the opportunity to report if they are being asked to transport people on unroadworthy vehicles. Because I think part of the problem may sometimes be that employees are afraid that if they speak up and report that, a vehicle is in need of costly repairs, and they say, I refrain from driving this vehicle until the brakes are not fixed, that people don't, I don't know if that may be a problem, but that I can just foresee that some people might be afraid to report pertinent issues such as that. So perhaps we can say that consideration be given to shall one encourage employers to for their designated drivers to obtain public driver permits, PDPs. I think it's now got it's now professional driver permits. I think the name has changed somewhat. Perhaps Honourable Moran you might, one of the other members might want to correct me or help me.
No, Chair, I'm not speaking about PDPs. PDP is, in fact, it is a requirement, and you will find that most or all of these drivers do have PDPs because they have to transport goods. The issue was about training to transport people behind trucks. And that's basically what the agri-industry currently is discussing. And whether we basically agree to it or not, I think that's an issue that they will take up in going forward. But I think we should just support them in that particular endeavor.
Okay. So if we just go and say that special training or further training of drivers in safe driving techniques, that consideration should be given to the development of such a program.
Yes.
Okay. I think we're on the same page, Honourable Bartman.
No, I was just indicating support, Chair.
Good, good. And then lastly, from my side, honourable members, Honourable Maran and myself, we've been in discussions with one another regarding protecting also the dignity, but adding to the safety of passengers on truck beds, the design and fitting of those trucks with temporary structures whereby people can sit on benches, where they will be sitting in the shade because there's some cloth or sail covering that frame. And I just found it very interesting that with the last accident at Klapmuts, that truck, according to the pictures, have been equipped with a light frame, because quite often those frames need to be removed relatively easily. And although a number of people were injured and even seriously injured, you know, normally when a truck overturns, it's a matter of death. And in this case, there were no deaths. So I think what we can perhaps consider, and that would be my proposal, that perhaps attention be given to the design of temporary structures on truck beds for the transport of passengers, and the protection that such frames might be able to give to people transported on the back of truck beds, even if they don't make that big a difference in terms of road safety in the case of let's call it a head-on collision or something like that. At least it will add to the dignity of people being transported, and it may add to a limited extent to the safety of those passengers as well. So my proposal would be that we call on the relevant stakeholders to develop good practices or designs for structures that will give some form of protection and add to the dignity of passengers being transported on the back of open vehicles. That would be my last proposal.
Yeah, no, Chair.
Yes.
No, the Honourable Bartman can go first. That's fine.
She expressed her support for the proposal.
Okay, Chair. No, Chair, thanks very much. No, Chair, I'm fully in support of that. And if you look, for instance, within the industry, it's already happening where basically farmers or farmer organizations within your different areas have decided and agreed to that particular approach, having those canopies and making sure that people are safe. I agree with you, Chair, on the issue of the accident of Klapmuts, is that there was seats, and I think there was a type of a structure that basically kept workers inside whenever there's an accident, because in many cases is that workers fell off the truck, hitting the road, the tar, or a pole or a stone which is next to the road, and basically causing the death of a person or persons. I think, Chair, the issue of Klapmuts also is that although there was seats, in many cases those seats are not mounted to that particular truck. And when a truck is in an accident, that same seat might cause injuries or death. And remember, in that meeting, I have asked Johnny straight on basically to look whether seats can be mounted onto that truck. And maybe, Chair, as a committee, maybe at some stage we must go out and visit some of a farm or a farm where this practice is already in place. I know, for instance, of a farmer where he have developed a canopy and where the seats is basically it's one structure, canopy and seats all together, mounted together. And it took basically 5 minutes to remove the whole canopy with seats all together from that truck, and basically 5 minutes to put it back, a chair. And maybe at some stage we should visit. And I think you have seen some of the photos when myself and Cameron visited one of these farms. But I'm fully in support that we have to look at that to make it more dignified for those workers. Thanks.
Good, thank you. And perhaps lastly then, that we, when we engage with representatives from the farm worker organizations, that we also run these recommendations with them and ask them for their views on this.
You are speaking now like unions, Chair, ne? Farm worker or farm?
Farm workers.
Yes,
normally these are labor unions, yes.
Yes, I've met with a lot of them, Chair, a couple of them regarding this particular issue, and they expressed their support for this particular issue, because the one thing that they don't want, because if you look at the regulations, the transport regulations saying if a transport is permitted to transport passengers, then a person or a farmer is allowed to charge a fee. So they don't want to arrive at that point, and therefore they have expressed support for what we are currently busy with, and the proposal made by farmers by saying that, and the proposal that you have just made, saying rather that we should have these canopies where there's seats where people can sit, and also the previous resolution that we have taken with fewer numbers. So I've met with COSATU, I've met with BOSI and other unions, and they are fully in support of this particular issue. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I just lastly then, if we can step off the recommendations in terms of the vehicles and the transport itself, for our next meeting, Honorable Maran and other members, would you like to perhaps hand to Ms. Niekerk the contact people that you would like to be informed of such a future meeting? Perhaps we can also ask the Department of Agriculture, because I trust that they would know best who are the biggest employee representative organizations or unions in the agricultural field. But that we just, when we invite people, that we invite the bigger role players in agriculture, farm worker representatives. Would you be able to add such names to her?
We'll do so, Chair. I think I've already done so, 2 or 3, 4. But the issue with the first meeting was, Chair, whether they should be part of the main meeting or whether they should just log in or join on YouTube. That was basically the issue. But I will speak to the procedural officer and see whether we got all those contact details of those unions, and just to make sure that they are part. Chair, thanks.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you, Honourable Maran. I must say one of the highlights for me of our functioning here in our standing committees in the Western Cape is the cooperation across party political representatives. So thank you very much for that. Honourable members, can we then step off this matter, and then obviously we will be adjourning. Any other points that you would like to raise?
Chair, I propose that we step off.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Niekerk, perhaps if you could just help us and remind us as members our next meeting and the topic of that next meeting.
Thank you, Chairperson. The next meeting program is the Appropriation Bill meeting, which takes place on the 19th of March. That's on vote 11 from 2 till 6 on that day. And then we have the appropriation bill on vote 9, which takes place on Tuesday, the 23rd of March from 9 o'clock until 1 o'clock.
Good,
And those
thank
are
you
the
very
meetings
much.
scheduled. Thank you.
Thank you, members. And then I can also just confirm that we are hoping that the advertisements regarding the land use planning ordinance, as well as the upgrade of land tenure rights, that those advertisements will appear hopefully over the course of this upcoming weekend. Correct, Ms. Niekerk?
That is correct, Chairperson.
Good, thank you very much. Honourable members, with that then, and no other hands being raised, I would like to thank you all for your participation in this morning's meeting. Thank you very much, and the meeting is therefore now adjourned. Have a good day.